So it's deer season, and I've been listening to a podcast today, and they're telling deer stories. And I was like, man, I wish I could tell my deer story on this podcast. I'm like, dude, you got your own podcast. Why can't you tell your deer story? So, in honor of deer season coming in, here's the story on this deer right here. I'd never been a big buck killer. I'm still not a big buck killer. I don't. That's not my thing. Okay, I just like deer hunting. You kill big deer, that's great. Me, this right here, 120 something inch 8-point does me fine. Prior to this, didn't do that. I was pretty much shoot it. I mean, I fill my tag every year. 6 deer going down every year. But my dad wasn't. My dad, he was probably the only person in our family that did shoot deer like this. And it's because he passed on a lot of the deer that I was shooting. And something tells me now that I'm a dad, he was passing on those deer so that I could kill them. But either way, my grandfather, his brothers, everybody, we shot whatever. Dad didn't. So I kind of always looked at Dad. I was like, man, he's a good hunter, and he really is. So here we are, December. No, it wasn't. It was November of 2009, and it's cold here in North Louisiana. And I went to this little box stand that I did. I was rifle hunting. I primarily rifle hunted at that time in my life, and I remember it was cold as a wedge. And I had these hunting boots on. If you live in Louisiana, you know what the standard hunting boot is in Louisiana. It's the green lacrosse knee boots. And that's what I had. These didn't have any insulation. It was probably in maybe close to 20 degrees that morning. And I was cold. Didn't have a heater. And probably around 8 o'clock, 8:30, I got tired of sitting there. I got tired of being cold. Because I knew this stand didn't have a heater, but the other stand did. And the other stand's insulated. And the other stand has a better chair. Why didn't I go to that stand? I still don't know. So I climb out of my stand and I get to my pickup and I drive across the hunting lease over to the other stand. It was my grandfather's stand. Put that stand up in 91. And it's still standing today. And as I'm driving in, there's some guys coming out. Now, I have to go down this log road into this clear cut, this old pine plantation. And as I'm coming in, these guys from South Louisiana are walking out. They're walking to their trucks. I give them the, hey, how you doing? They say, I didn't see nothing. I said, okay, I'm going to go in here and sit down for a little bit. And I pulled in and I started walking in. And see, my dad's hunting style, it started wearing off on me a little bit. Started kind of grinding on me. And I'm like, I want to do that. I said, you know what, Self? We're going to shoot anything we see today except a spike. We're going to set the standards. 10-4. Walking in the stand, I'm talking about it's a bluebird day. It is beautiful. It is crisp. It is clear. And it's about, right now, it's probably pushing 10, 9:30 or 10 o'clock. As I'm walking in, I rounded the curve, and you could see probably 250, 300 yards. The stand was halfway between where I'm standing and the end of the lane. And there was a deer. And I got my rifle off and I put the scope on it. It was a spike, of course. So I couldn't shoot the deer. So I decided I was going to slip up to the stand and see if I could get in the stand without this deer seeing me. Because there were certain little spots I could get along the road, the little logging road I was using to get in there. So I'm easing up. I'm using the shadows, using the deer putting his head down. He's facing away from me. So, it kind of plays into my favor. I can ease up, and when he picks his head up, I kind of stop. And I get 50 yards from the stand. The deer was probably another 100 yards, maybe close to 100 yards from the stand. So I'm probably 150 yards from the stand. And all of a sudden, I heard this racket off to my left, and a doe jumps out in the lane. And this deer's looking at this doe. And she runs from his, now keep in mind, the deer on this side, she runs this side. The buck that's standing right here watched her from here. Now he turns his head and he's looking at her. Directly heard another crash. And he turned his head. And when he turned his head and looked in the woods where the crash came from, he pinned his ears back. I knew enough about that movement to know what was coming. I got that 7mm 08 up and I clicked the safety because I knew another buck was coming out. And it did. It was this deer. The deer, I'll never, ever forget it in my life. He was mature. He had how they have that hump on their back. And he walked out in that lane. I'd never seen a deer like this in my life. And when he walked out in that lane, he looked at that spike and he swung his head down. Never forget it as long as I live. He swung his head down and he looked at me. And when he looked at me, I knew, I said, he sees me. It's over. Because the wind, I forgot, the wind was blowing dead to him. He looked at me. When he looked at me, I knew he was finna go. And I squeezed, free-handed. Like I said, probably 150 yards. Deer turned, wheeled, went back where he came from. I was shaking. I couldn't believe. I remember standing there saying to myself, what just happened? I go down there, I look. I can't find anything. I'm looking, no blood. I see where the deer's standing, no blood. I go in the woods, I look, no blood. I'm looking all over, looking. I bet I looked for blood for an hour. No blood. I'm down. I mean, it's pushing 11 o'clock now. Probably 11. It's right at 11. And so I called my dad. I told him what happened. He said, hey, come back for lunch. Come back for lunch and let's get your thoughts together. I said, okay. He said, how big is he? Now keep in mind, okay, this is the biggest deer I've ever seen on the hoof. I said, this is big buck contest kind of deer. Okay, it ain't quite big buck contest. To me it was, okay? And I go home and eat lunch with Dad, and we sit there for a while and we talk about it. And he kind of puts rational thoughts in my mind. Okay, do this. Why don't we do that? Why don't we do this? Well, I said, okay, all right. And turned around, and I just couldn't stand it no more. I said, I got to go. I'm going back. So I went to the house. I didn't live too far from Dad at the time, me and the girl's mom. We were married at the time, and I went back to where we were living. I got an old trail camera. You remember the old ones? It was a mole tree. It's about yay big and about yay wide, and it was black and had a flash that blinds Stevie can see, but it would blind anybody, right? I grabbed that and I grabbed my climbing stand. I said, I know where he came from. I'm going back down there to get him. And so I tore out, and I knew that the deer had come from, because they always traveled. I knew the trail that they always would use. And I walked a lot of that trail, but I didn't walk it very far because I was just looking for blood, right? So I walked way on down the end of my lane, and I drop off in this bottom, and I look, and I'm looking for me a tree because it's an oak flat down in that bottom. And I'm like, this is where I'm going to set up, and I'm going to catch him coming through this flat. Because if he's looking for does, he's going to find another. And I look around, and I said, there's my tree. And so I walked to the tree. And as I'm walking to the tree, I got to drop down in an old dry creek bed. And I walk and I drop down that old dry creek bed. And I got my stand on my back. I got my rifle on my side. I got my trail camera right here. And when I come up out of that old dry creek bed, there he lay. You know, sometimes deer hunting it's life lessons. It teaches you lessons about the woods, but it also teaches you lessons about life. And what I learned right there is don't ever give up on a deer. And don't ever give up on whatever you're chasing. You know, I thought I was done. I thought I missed, but I wasn't going to let it get me down. I tell people this all the time. Don't ever let a bad choice or a bad decision, or maybe just a bad opportunity, an opportunity that got by you, get you down. Because if you let it get you down, you're going to mess up your mind for the next opportunity that comes along. In archery, I like to say this. I got a quiver, holds 5 arrows. I make one bad shot. I got to shake it off because I got 4 more to go. And a lot of times, what I've learned out of deer hunting, especially, shake it off. Shake it off. You made something had happen, shake it off. Try harder, go after it harder the next time. Deer season's in North Louisiana. I'm an official scorer for Buckmasters. If you want your deer scored, we got a little locals contest here in Union Parish. I know you guys watching from out of state, you don't even know nothing about Union Parish, but hey, it's a good little contest. You'll see a lot of good local deer. Every so often, we'll have about 140, 150, maybe even 160-inch deer show up. We go Facebook Live on Thursday nights at K&M Coffee, Corks, and Camo. You can check them out on Facebook. That's K with the and symbol, K&M, Coffee, Corks, and Camo. We'll go live every Thursday night right around 6:30, depends on what time of the year it is. If it's close to the rut, we're going to go close. We're going to be at 6 o'clock. We're going to run it till about 8 or till we get done. So hope you guys are having fun. Hope you guys are having a season that is that you've got some deer on camera that you love. Bring them out to K&M. Let me score them. And if you're out of state, get with me. We'll do a story on that dude too. Thanks for watching.